My name is Anna, and I'm 29 years old. Growing up, I never really felt like I fit in, at least not in the way my younger sister Lily seemed to. Our parents always made it clear that she was their favourite. They adored her in a way that I always felt was different. She was the perfect daughter. Beautiful, outgoing, and effortlessly charming. While I always did my best, I didn't have the same natural charisma she did. And in their eyes, that was all they saw. It wasn't that they were cruel, no. They were just blind to how their favoritism affected me. It's like I was invisible next to her, no matter how much I tried. It wasn't just when we were kids. Even as we grew older, the favoritism remained. Lily could do no wrong. She could get into trouble or make questionable decisions, but Mum and Dad would just laugh it off. I, on the other hand, had to be perfect. I had to be the responsible one, the steady one. No one ever seemed to notice the quiet sacrifices I made. But Lily was the one who got all the attention. And honestly, I got tired of it. When Lily was 21, she met a guy named Jake. He was from Louisiana, charming in that southern way, handsome, funny, and full of promises. He seemed like the perfect match for her. At first, I was happy for her. She was in love, and that's what mattered, right? But as the relationship grew more serious, I started noticing things that didn't sit right with me. He was always full of talk, but never seemed to have much to back it up. I remember one conversation where he said he wanted to start his own business, but when I asked what kind of business, he didn't have an answer, just vague promises about getting things going. I was skeptical, but my parents were thrilled. They thought he was everything Lily needed. They loved that he was from a good family, and they were impressed by his confidence. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't the right person for her. Still, I kept quiet. I didn't want to ruin her happiness, even if I had my doubts. Then when Lily and Jake got engaged, things started to shift. My parents acted like I was the one who had done something wrong. They treated me like I was ungrateful for the life they had given me, while showering Lily with praise and attention. It was like my life had no room in their world. And even worse, they started implying that I would never find a man like Jake, that I would never get married because I was too picky or too demanding. Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. It all came to a head one night when my parents invited me over for dinner. It was supposed to be a casual meal, but something about the evening felt off. Lily had just gotten back from her honeymoon, and as we sat around the table, my parents kept gushing over her marriage. How perfect it all was. How lucky she was to have found someone so amazing. And then, without any warning, my dad looked at me across the table and said, "You know, Anna, you're never going to find a man like Jake. You're too busy with your career, too focused on yourself. You're not giving anyone a chance. You'll end up alone." The words stung, but it wasn't just that. It was the way my mother nodded along, agreeing with him, as if everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed, was nothing compared to Lily's new life with Jake, the man I didn't even trust. I could feel the anger rising in me, but I kept it together for the sake of the dinner. But I knew in that moment that I had reached my breaking point. I stood up and excused myself from the table, unable to stay in that toxic environment any longer. That night, I didn't cry. I was angry. So angry that I packed a bag and left. I called up a friend and went to stay with her. I needed space, needed to breathe away from the constant comparisons. It was clear to me then, my family never really saw me for who I was. They only saw what they wanted me to be, and I wasn't going to be part of that anymore. I stopped talking to my parents after that. I stopped seeing Lily too. I just couldn't stand the idea of being in the same room as them, knowing they had chosen Jake over me, over everything I had done. I poured myself into my work. I started my own business, an online store that sold handmade items I was passionate about. It was small at first, but it grew quickly. I worked day and night, building something that was mine and mine alone. It was a hard road, but I was determined to make it work. I had nothing to prove to anyone but myself, and through it all, I was finally starting to feel like I was building something that mattered. As the months passed, my business took off. I was able to hire a few employees, expand my product line, and soon I was living a life I had worked hard for. My days were filled with purpose, and in the quiet moments when I allowed myself to relax, I realized something important. I didn't need my family's approval. I was building a life for myself, and it was better than I could have ever imagined. And then, unexpectedly, I met someone. His name was Matt. He was kind, genuine, and incredibly supportive. He encouraged me in everything I did without trying to change me. It was the kind of relationship I had always dreamed of. And it was real. We fell in love, slowly but surely. And when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. I had found everything I had been looking for. Someone who loved me for me, who understood my ambitions and supported them. I couldn't have asked for anything more. And as I looked around at the life we had created together, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. I had built this with my own hands, piece by piece. But the story didn't end there. Months later, I received a call from my sister. It was a conversation I never expected. Her voice was different, quieter, almost fragile. At first, I didn't know whether to answer at all, but curiosity got the better of me. There was a long pause after I said hello, and then she spoke in a tone I'd never heard from her before. "Anna, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from right now, but I didn't know who else to call." I didn't respond. I just waited. She went on, hesitating with every sentence as if trying to force the words out one by one. "Jake and we're getting divorced." Her voice cracked a little, but she kept going. "He has a gambling problem. I didn't want to believe it at first, but it's real. He's been hiding debt, losing money for years. He even took out loans in my name without telling me." I stayed silent. "I found out after he left for a work trip and didn't come back for 3 days," she continued. "Turns out he was at a casino. Again. I called him, begged him to come home. He told me to relax, that it was just temporary, but I checked our accounts and we're broke. Everything's gone, Anna. The savings, the emergency fund, all of it." I didn't gloat. I didn't feel joy. Honestly, I just felt tired. "Lily," I said after a while, "I'm sorry you're going through this. I really am. But you knew I didn't trust him. You all did. And instead of listening, you—" "I know," she interrupted quickly, her voice shaking. "I know what we said, what Mum and Dad said. I can't take it back. I was so caught up in being the one they favoured, I didn't see what was happening right in front of me." And then she said something that actually made my breath catch. "I used to think you were just bitter, that you were jealous, but you were just strong. You were right to walk away. You didn't have anyone cheering you on, and you still made something of yourself. I don't know how you did it, but I admire you for it, I really do." It was strange hearing her say those words I never thought would come from her. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring out the window of my office as the sun dipped behind the buildings. She went on to say she was staying at Mum and Dad's with her son, Ethan, a quiet little boy I'd never met. She said our parents weren't doing well either. They'd put so much of themselves into Jake and Lily's perfect life that his downfall had shaken their whole sense of control. They were humiliated, angry, but most of all, they were scared, because everything they'd believed in was now cracking beneath them. And now Lily had to rebuild from scratch, as a single mom, with no job, no savings, no support system. At least not the kind that truly mattered. I told her I needed time to think, that I appreciated her honesty, and then I hung up. That night, I sat with Matt on our back porch. He held my hand as I told him everything, about Lily's call, about Jake, about the years of favoritism and silence that had defined so much of my childhood. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to fix it. He just listened, like he always did. "I don't know if I can forgive them," I whispered. "You don't have to," he said softly, "but you can choose peace for yourself." And that stuck with me, so I took my time. I didn't run back into their lives. I didn't rush to be the savior they once refused to believe in. But I did send Lily a small package a week later. It wasn't much, some handmade soaps, a calming candle and a short note. Life has a way of teaching us the lessons we refuse to hear. I hope you find your peace. Anna. I don't know what will happen next. Maybe we'll speak again. Maybe we won't. But what I do know is this. They tried to make me feel like I was less. That I would never be loved, never succeed, never build anything worthwhile. They chose a smooth-talking man over their own daughter, and it backfired in the most poetic way imaginable. Meanwhile, I built a life on truth, patience, and resilience. And in the end, the quiet one, the overlooked daughter, became the one who didn't just survive. She thrived. Weeks passed after I sent that package, and I didn't expect a reply. I hadn't sent it for validation. I did it because I wanted to release the final bit of weight I'd been carrying. Sometimes the only way to stop the cycle of hurt is to stop waiting for someone else to say sorry. That note was my way of closing the door, gently, instead of slamming it shut. But to my surprise, Lily wrote back. Not through a long, dramatic letter, but through a single sentence in a text. Thank you. I don't deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it. That was it. No overreaching, no attempts to force closeness, just quiet acknowledgement. And honestly, that's all I needed. In the meantime, my life continued to bloom in ways I never could have imagined. My business was featured in a local magazine, and for the first time, I was invited to speak at a small women's entrepreneur event. Standing on that stage, looking out at dozens of women who were chasing their dreams just like I once did, I felt something powerful. Pride. Not the flashy, boastful kind, but a deep, grounding pride that comes from knowing you earned every inch of the ground beneath your feet. Matt and I started looking for a home outside the city, somewhere quieter, with more space to grow. He joked about planting fruit trees and raising chickens, and even though I laughed, I could actually see it. I could see our future unfolding not with grandeur, but with calm, steady joy. The kind of life no one handed us. We built it ourselves. One Sunday morning, out of the blue, my mum called. Well, I stared at the name on my phone for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the screen. I hadn't spoken to her in over 2 years. I didn't know what she wanted, but curiosity and something softer, something less angry than before, made me pick up. Anna, she said quietly, I know I don't have the right to call, but I just wanted to say, I see now. I see what we did. What we didn't do. And I'm sorry. Her voice cracked. I was wrong about Jake, about you, about everything. I thought I was protecting your sister by choosing someone like him. I didn't realize I was hurting you every time I dismissed your instincts, every time I made you feel like you weren't enough. I can't undo it, but I want you to know I regret it. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just listened. And when she was done, I took a breath and said, I know you did what you thought was right at the time, but it hurt, Mom. It hurt for a long time. I know, she whispered, and I wish I'd been strong enough to see it back then. We didn't magically fix everything in that one conversation. We didn't start planning family dinners or hugging at holidays, but it was a beginning, a long overdue one, and it felt like a small crack of light in a room I had closed off for far too long. Months later, Lily began rebuilding her life too. She found a small apartment and started taking online classes. She even launched a handmade Etsy shop selling baby items, something she said was inspired by watching me all those years. We still weren't close, not really, but there was a quiet respect between us now. No more comparisons, no more pretending. Just two women who had learned, each in their own way, that the world doesn't owe you fairness, but it does respond to the work you put into it. And for those who build their lives on pretense, image, and blind favoritism. Eventually, reality catches up. I didn't win anything in the traditional sense. There was no dramatic courtroom scene, no viral moment of revenge, just a slow, unfolding kind of justice, the kind you feel in your bones when the people who hurt you finally face the truth they spent years running from. My parents once told me I'd end up alone, that I was too driven, too particular, too serious. But I look around at my life now, the love I share with Matt, the home we've made, the business I've grown, the peace I wake up with each day, and I think, maybe I was never the problem. Maybe they just didn't know how to love someone who didn't fit their idea of what a daughter should be. And maybe that's okay, because I found my own way. I found someone who sees me fully, without needing me to shrink. I built something that can't be taken from me, and I did it without stepping on anyone, without tearing anyone else down. That, to me, is the real success. Not just surviving what they said about me, but proving it was never true, not with words, with the life I live now. A few years have passed now, and I've found myself in a place I never thought I'd reach. My life isn't perfect, no one's is, but it's mine. And for the first time, it feels complete. Matt and I settled into a house just outside of town, with a big garden and room for all the things we dreamt of. We've planted fruit trees, just like he'd joked about. We have a small vegetable patch in the backyard. And yes, we even have chickens. Matt's proud of them, even though he's still learning how to make them behave. The simple life has become our refuge, and in it I've found peace. I never thought I'd find peace in quiet. Growing up, it felt like there was always something missing. Always a void that I tried to fill with success, with achievements, with the things I thought would make me worthy of love. But now, with Matt by my side, and with the life we've built together, I realize that peace doesn't come from impressing people. It doesn't come from chasing perfection or fulfilling someone else's expectations. It comes from simply being enough, exactly as you are. My business has continued to grow, and while it's not the biggest company out there, it's been steady. I still create products I'm proud of, and the connections I've made with customers feel like they're part of something real. I no longer work for anyone's approval. I work because I love what I do, and because it provides for the life we've built together. I've also learned to let go of the anger I used to feel toward my parents and my sister. It's not that I forget or forgive easily. It's that I've realized holding on to bitterness only hurts me in the end. My parents, for all their faults, still gave me the tools I needed to succeed, even if they didn't always understand me. They've come a long way, and they've tried to make amends, though it hasn't been easy. I've been more open to seeing their efforts, and I can't deny that I'm glad we're finally starting to rebuild, even if it's slow. Lily, too, has made strides in her own life. I'm not sure we'll ever be close in the way we once imagined, but she's a mother now, learning the ropes of single parenthood. I've seen her struggle, but I've also seen her strength. Something I never gave her credit for when we were younger. She's not the carefree sister I once envied, but a woman doing the best she can. And for that, I respect her. We've had a few more conversations since that first apology text. They're still tentative, still distant, but at least they're real. There's no pretense anymore, no bitterness, just an understanding that life isn't as simple as we once thought. A few months ago, I heard from a family friend who had stayed in touch with Uncle Paul and Vanessa. They had, as expected, continued their struggle. The factory jobs they had taken on weren't paying well, and there were murmurs about their financial stability. I wasn't shocked. I'd heard enough over the years to know that their extravagant lifestyle had only been a facade, one that eventually crumbled under the weight of their own choices. And while I wasn't exactly gloating, it was hard to deny that a small part of me felt a quiet satisfaction. The truth always has a way of coming to the surface. Uncle Paul and Vanessa had spent so many years looking down on us, calling us failures, labeling us as insignificant. Now, it seemed, they were the ones struggling to survive. The riches they had once flaunted were gone, and they were left with nothing but the consequences of their actions. I remember the last time I saw Uncle Paul. It was at a family gathering of all places. He looked different, tired, haggard even. The arrogance that had once marked him was gone, replaced by something softer, something regretful. When our eyes met across the room, he didn't look away. He didn't try to pretend like things hadn't happened. He simply nodded at me. No words, just a silent acknowledgement of everything that had transpired. I didn't feel the need to say anything in return. It wasn't my place anymore. Over the years, I've learned that justice doesn't always come in the form of vengeance. It's not about having the last word or making others pay for the pain they've caused you. The real justice comes when you live your life on your own terms. When you rise above the hurt and the resentment. When you build something from the ground up and don't look back at what others have. I've also learned that life isn't a competition. For so long, I had been running to prove something to my parents, to my sister, to myself. I thought success was the only thing that mattered. But now I see that the real victory is in the quiet moments, the love of a good man, the satisfaction of doing something you believe in, the warmth of family when it's earned, not forced. So, as I sit here today in my home with Matt, surrounded by our garden and the soft sounds of life outside, I feel nothing but gratitude. I don't need to look back at the people who hurt me, who tried to tear me down. I don't need their approval anymore. I have everything I need right here. It's a peaceful kind of victory. And for once, I'm content just to let it be enough. Years have passed since that turning point, and life has unfolded in ways I never could have imagined. It's funny how time has a way of showing you what really matters, isn't it? Looking back, I can see how each decision, each struggle, led me to where I am now. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. Matt and I are doing well. We've created a home that's full of warmth, not just from the walls and the roof over our heads, but from the love we share. It's quiet here, not in the sense of loneliness, but in the way you find peace when you stop trying to prove yourself. There's something so beautiful in knowing that you don't need to fight anymore, that the battles you fought within yourself were all you ever needed to win. I still run my business, and it's better than I could have dreamed. We've expanded to sell not just handmade products, but also educational materials on sustainable living. The community I've built is thriving, and more than ever, I feel connected to people who understand the value of hard work, integrity, and simplicity. But it's not just about work. It's about the people I've chosen to keep close. We've made friends who lift us up, who share our values. And while my family, especially Lily, may never fully understand everything, I've come to accept that. The love I've found from Matt and the friends we've surrounded ourselves with is the love I've needed all along. I still think about Uncle Paul and Vanessa from time to time. The bitterness I once felt has faded into a distant memory. Their fall from grace wasn't a victory for me, but it was a reminder of how far we've come. They believed their wealth would protect them, but they were wrong. In the end, their downfall was a consequence of their own actions, and I had nothing to do with it. There's a small part of me that hopes they've learned something, learned to see what really matters. But even if they haven't, it's not my problem anymore. I've let go of that weight. I don't need their apology or their approval or their acknowledgement. I've found my own peace. Now, when I look back at those years, at all the pain, the confusion, the anger, I realize something important. Those experiences didn't break me. They built me. They shaped who I am today. Someone who knows her worth, who knows the value of perseverance, and who understands that love and success come in many different forms. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, and I wouldn't change a single step of the journey.